In today's Farm Report, the University of Minnesota Extension Beef Team will be hosting a Beef Cattle Feeder Days next week for area beef producers. Emily Wilmes, livestock educator with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office, has more.
The University of Minnesota Extension Beef Team will be bringing the Cattle Feeder Days program to central Minnesota next week. Cattle Feeder Days is one of 2 multi-site traveling programs offered by the Extension Beef Team each year. The other is Cow-Calf Days. This program is intended to educate beef producers who feed cattle and those in the beef industry who work with these farms about current hot topics and issues facing the industry. Cattle Feeder Days will be held on Monday, December 7th at 5:30 p.m. at the Hub Supper Club, located at 30905 County Road 13 in Bertram. Registration cost is $20 per person and includes an evening meal and handouts. The feature topic at this session is Connecting the Beef Supply Chain with Jerry Wolf of Wolf Cattle. Based out of Morris, the Wolfs have been in the cattle business for more than half a century, raising Limousin, Angus, cross cattle. Cattle feeding is a significant part of the Wolf Cattle integrated beef model. Not only is Wolf Cattle aligned with and markets fed cattle from beef cow ranches, they are now building relationships with dairy farms that are utilizing Wolf Limousin genetics on Jersey and Holstein cows to add value to their calves. These dairy Limousin crossbred calves are being fed through Wolf Cattle's Breeding to Feeding program. Jerry Wolf will give an overview on Wolf Cattle's operation and how they are connecting the beef supply chain through the multiple partnerships created in their cattle business. Additional topics that will be covered by the beef team include retrofitting existing facilities for feeding beef and dairy steers, and considerations for designing implant programs for beef and dairy steers, as well as Dr. Tom Zeck with Freeport Vet presenting on the topic, the Veterinary Feed Directive. How will it affect you? RSVPs are requested to help with the meal count. You can do this by calling me at the Stearns County Extension Office at 320-255-6169. Also, feel free to call if you have any questions. Again, Cattle Feeder Days will be held on Monday, December 7th at 5:30 p.m. at the Hub Supper Club in Bertram. Registration cost is $20 per person and includes an evening meal and handouts. If you have any questions or would like to RSVP, call me at the Stearns County Extension Office at 320-255-6169. This is Emily Wilmes with University of Minnesota Extension.
Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack spends the early part of this week in Europe. His first stop Monday was Brussels, Belgium, home of the European Parliament. He visited with members of the Parliament's Agricultural and Rural Development Committee to engage in dialogue involving issues such as climate change and trade, specifically the ongoing transatlantic trade and investment partnership negotiations.
I'm not here to tell you that it's going to be easy. It won't be. It's going to be very difficult. But it will require, I think, time. It will require commitment to try to get to a solution that works for folks. It will require a real basic understanding of precisely what the systems are and what the goals are. And it will require, I think, a bit of creativity on the part of folks to figure out ways in which we can get a system that works.
The Secretary will have a similar dialogue Tuesday with European Union Ag Commissioner Phil Hogan at the annual EU Ag Outlook Conference in Brussels, before traveling to Paris for the United Nations Climate Change Summit. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Avian influenza hit Minnesota turkey producers hard, but as many consumers noticed, the price for turkeys did not go up in the grocery store. Emily Wilmes with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office shares some insight onto why that was the case.
There was a lot of concern after the outbreak that there would be a shortage of turkeys for the holiday season. Many consumers may have been surprised to see no shortage of their favorite turkey products, nor a price hike for those foods. This is because nationwide there are still plenty of turkeys. While the outbreak was devastating to Minnesota, only 5% of the nation's turkeys were actually lost in the outbreak. This means you should have no trouble getting a turkey for any of the other upcoming holidays. Back on the farm, the threat of avian influenza is still very real, so the Minnesota Board of Animal Health reminds all poultry producers and people with any level of exposure to poultry birds to practice responsible biosecurity. There are small steps you can take that will have a big impact. These include Eliminate opportunities for your birds to interact with wild birds. Wild waterfowl are carriers of disease, including avian influenza. The best way to avoid diseases that wildlife carry is to keep domestic animals separated from the wild. Next, if you have birds at home, do not visit another farm, home, or facility that also has birds. If you must visit another premises, be sure to shower and put on clean clothes and shoes beforehand. Remember that vehicles can be vehicles for disease transmission. Before you drive down the road, consider where you are going. Will you be heading to another farm or a live bird market? If the answer is yes, be sure your vehicle is clean and free of dirt, manure, and other organic material. Early detection can help prevent the spread of disease. Knowing the signs to look for and monitoring the health of your birds on a regular basis is very important. Some signs to look for include nasal discharge, unusually quiet birds, decreased food and water consumption, drop in egg production, and increased or unusual death loss in your flock. Finally, report sick and dead birds to state health officials immediately. If your birds appear sick or you have experienced increased mortality, call 320-214-6700, extension 3804. Again, to report sick or dead birds to state health officials, you can call 320-214-6700, extension 3804. If you ever have any questions about avian influenza, you can visit the Minnesota Board of Animal Health's website at www.bah.state.mn.us. This is Emily Wilmus with University of Minnesota Extension.
The Environmental Protection Agency's final renewable fuel blending requirements are higher than had been previously proposed, lower than what the renewable fuel statute had set. The EPA announcement Monday said that the final numbers for 2014 and 15 are based on what it says are the actual amounts of domestic biofuels used, and the volumes announced for 2016 do show increases from just under 17 billion gallons set for this year to a bit over 18 billion for next year. That 18 billion would consist of 14.5 of corn ethanol compared to 12.2 this year, and there were increases for cellulosic, advanced biofuels, and also biodiesel. In a statement, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack called the rule a positive step forward, providing for growth, but he says the RFS is not the only factor affecting the biofuels industry, and he had said all along,
I'm looking for ways in which we can help this industry, regardless of what EPA does.
Including more research on production, finding new markets, and helping bring higher blends of ethanol and gasoline to more consumers across the country. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.